Okay, welcome back to Methanol Madness, and right now we're going to have a quick yak with one of the true legends of the Ruapuna Speedway, Allan Palmer. Used to terrorise the Speedway back in the 60s, 70s and into the mid-80s, and now resident up in the USA. But you've got a bit of a story behind you, Allan, and you started way back when with the very popular go-kart racing.
Yeah, Ashburton Go-Kart Club. That was the old days of the Villiers motor and the wheelbarrow type tyres and wheels on the out in paddocks with hay bales making out a track. It had its moments, and then so I did all right in that, and people started bringing these metallics out, and my old Villiers, I could keep up and run them off a few times. But anyway, that proceeded to coming out to Templeton here in the early days and sitting on the bank with a blanket and some illegal substances rolled up. And
beer.
Yes. And yeah, I hadn't ventured from beer at that point. So Alf Godfrey's car was advertised for sale, so I went down and ended up buying that. And that's what got me into the Speedway. And
you crewed for your cousin Russell, and when he ploughed it through the fence, you had a few drives in the mighty V6 Ford Midget.
Yeah, that was not designed, but it happened. And yeah, Jeff Stone and myself used to drive through from Rakaya through the week and work on the car as well as crew for it here on the track. But yeah, that was good, and that got me into the Midget. I ran that and the TQ for about 2 or 3 consecutive meetings.
Really tough racing in those days. Rex Burt, Mark Williams, Kevin Stevens, that sort of thing. Bunch of cars too.
Yeah, we had 22 car fields back then, and they'd always put us off the back. There was Rex and Kevin, as you say, and Darryl, the 4 of us, and we'd be off the back. We had 6 laps to get it done. So it was. And those little cars, you had to pick them up and carry them, basically. The story is momentum. If you get off the gas, it takes half a lap to get it back. So you couldn't get out of the gas if you wanted to win a race. Yeah, but they were fun. That was fun racing, not a lot of dollars, but still good racing.
Right, so you won a South Island Championship in the TQ. You also raced on your wedding night. That's dedication.
Yeah, to the sport. Yes, it was toward the end of the season, and I had to finish in front of Rex Burt, irrespective of where he finished. So long as I finished in front of him, I had the championship. So I finished in front, so went back, and they were partying after the wedding in the garage, and I kind of wanted to stay there for a while. It was going pretty good time I got back, but anyway, that's as far as.
What was it? You had to breathe on the club secretary as a breathalyzer.
Yes, the breathalyzer there at the time was Russell Lang's nose, I think, if I remember right.
Then you built that really nice TQ to the American plans with the Triumph engine in it.
Yeah, that was pretty interesting. That I found there was a hot rod magazine had a write-up in this guy from California with this car, and it was a pretty decent looking car, and I was about to build a new one, and so I wrote to the guy. All it had was his name and like a 5-digit number beside it, which I knew. So I thought, I'll write to him. Maybe it'll find him. Maybe it won't. 5-digit number turned out to be his zip code, and the post office found him. So he got back to me. He said, well, those drawings are actually on the garage floor in chalk. So he sat to and printed out some drawings and sent them to me, and I hadn't met the guy at this point. I talked to him a couple of times on the telephone. He also sent me some specially developed. The guy had a Triumph motorcycle dealership, and one of his customers, believe it or not, was Steve McQueen. And so he sent me these developed camshafts. He also sent me a rear suspension, torsion bar suspension setup, a few other bits and pieces. He sent me all the correct jettings to run a Weber carburetor on methanol, which no one had really tried successfully. And it went on from that, so I put that car together and had a lot of success with that, with the Captain Morgan sponsorship, of course. I can't forget to put that in there. But that eased a lot of pain, that sponsorship, especially after the events at night.
So you won the Champion of Champions at Kiki, which was probably just as hard to win as the New Zealand Championship.
Yes, to qualify to run that race, you had to finish in the top 3 places of any given championship within the country. So it was all the top cars were there. That was a pretty big moment for me. I went up there for that race about 6 weeks after I went. I also travelled for the New Zealand Championship. had a bit of bad luck, problems with the motor, but still end up third in that. But it was a great little car, and I had people lining up to buy that thing. So that was prior to my first trip to the States, and subject to me buying something to replace it with. It wasn't for sale until I got home, but a very good friend of mine, Colin Grant from Napier, he had first dibs on it. So I called him when I got back and I said, "You own it," and he was there about 10 days later and picked it up.
Then you went on to the Midget, went up to the States and bought that really nice Edmund Sesco.
Yeah, I went up there in 75, and I stayed with the guy that sent me the Triumph pieces, and he couldn't get over these two guys. He picked us up at the airport, Zed Murray and myself. And he walked right up to us at the airport, and I said, "How come you walk?" He said, "You guys stick out like a sore thumb in there in the crowd." So we went back there, and old Ed and me went back to the Indy 500 and stuff like that. And he used to give us hell about a Kiwi hairpins, he called us. It's quite strange because his son actually married a girl in, his son's son married a girl here in Queenstown, and they visit here quite often. In fact, they just arrived back in the States 3 or 4 weeks ago.
Yeah. A lot of success in that car too, that Sesco.
Yeah, it belongs to now the Leonard Fast stable. There was a guy that does a lot of midget ride-up, not a TQ midget forum here, that's in the TQ club that looks like it's become worldwide almost now, and Guy Fawcett, and it's his brother, who has since died, who told me of this Leonard Fast, and he'd be worth talking to, so went out and met him and ended up buying it and brought it back to his shop, King Lawn shop, packed it up and sent it home here.
Then after that, the Volkswagen, first local Volkswagen.
Yeah, then I ran that car for 2 years, and it was a great car. That car was probably too powerful for the track here at the time. It's very slick. Now that car and today's tyres and suspension, shocks and torsions would still be a fast car. But so yeah, 2 years after that, Kevin Proctor decided he wanted to take it off me. So I had a new car built by Gardner's in Brisbane, Australia, and I ran that for, well, I think I got it home in it was 81. No, it wasn't, it was 78. That's right. We ran that and then had a few problems. Then I got hooked up with Bob Denson. We did some modifications on that motor, and then that was about the time he was coming up with his 4-cylinder Denco engine and approached me if I'd like to run that, and I kind of thought I didn't want to go through a whole lot of development in that. I just wasn't ready to do that. And then he approached me again about a year later, and I thought, to hell with it, we'll try it. And the rest is history on that. It was a winner right out of the box. In fact, the first time that car ever ran, we were out here at the Speedway on a Thursday with Stan Fox and Sleepy Tripp. And they said, "You guys are full of it. That car, you've had that car run." I said, "You saw that thing fired up and probably 50 feet.
Wow.
And they were pretty much impressed with it.
Yep. After that, you were out of the Denco, you sold up, but you ran Ted Robinson's V4 bit and Toddy's sprint car.
Yeah, Ted had this V4 and he had it all apart and wasn't too sure, so I gave him a hand, we put it together. And a fan of the club here, I guess, was Graham Dawson. He did all the body work on that car. And we tried to redesign it. I tried to base it off one of the Wilkie coil cars that they'd done up in Wisconsin, and offset it and did a few trick things to it. It turned out pretty good. And so then, and Toddy had his sprint car, and I think there was a team deal going on here. It was Australia versus New Zealand, and I think, yeah.
Black Law's out here.
Yes. So anyway, we ended up third equal in points on that deal.
Then you headed up to the States, and you've been living there ever since?
Yeah, I left here, I think it was February of '89, and I went up, and my next door neighbor, well, I lived with Bob Winnie for a period of time. He ended up buying a place across the street from him, and that had a few moments right there. And so I was there and then I got a job with an aviation company, and I was with them for about 22 or 23 years, and finally sold up, moved to Florida. And they tried to run me out of Florida a couple of weeks ago with that damn storm that come through, but anyway, we'll see what I got to face when I get home.
Yeah, see what you go back to.
Yeah, I got a lot of photos come through, but I got off light compared to a lot of people.
Yeah. Yeah, just in closing, 50 feature wins you've got from this place, and start adding on some at the likes of Nelson and Invercargill, and that's one hell of a record. 26 in TQs at Ruapuna, 24 in midgets, the 4 South Island Championships in midgets, 1 in TQs. What's your greatest moment? Because you raced against some of the big names up at Auckland.
My greatest moment, I don't appreciate even myself what I did when I look back, and I had no idea I had that many feature wins. I just never kept record of stuff like that. And just racing against names like Bobby Olivero and Rich Vogler, Rice, of course, Sleepy and that up at the Springs, and you were never going to beat them, but you had a hell of a lot of fun trying. But no, I don't know, there's things like that.
Foyt?
AJ, yes, started on the front row with AJ in Wellington. That was in 76 with the Sesco, and that was probably about the 7th or 8th race meeting I had in that car.
Yeah.
And when I look back now and think, you took it all for granted back in those days, but now you look back and think, well, hell, did all right, I guess,
yeah,
for what I had. If I'd known then what I know now, I would have done a lot better. I'd just been helping Kevin Proctor in Australia with his car and trying to get that set up. He had problems, a new car he imported. So I was over there and we got a few, and he had me scheduled to run that damn car, but the meeting got rained out, so that didn't happen. But Kevin said, where the hell? I said, hanging around the damn speedway. I said, I've learned more since I've stopped racing. Just simple little things that you don't ever think about. Sometimes you can't see the forest for the trees, and but when you learn, people say do this, do that, but you got to know why you're doing this or that. That's the big part. And so I've learned a lot hanging around that. I crew chief for Terry Waney in the USAC Championship for 2 or 3 years, and so during that time that was good. Had a lot of fun, way too much fun sometimes.
Yeah.
But anyway, that's good. I've been doing a bit of vintage racing in Florida, and I hooked up with a guy out of Miami, and he had 3 cars, and I used to work for him. Every Wednesday we'd go over there and I'd work on the cars. We also were running a couple of vehicles on the Bonneville salt flats, so I went out there and did that with them guys, and then he would trundle all these cars and give me the pick. And we had a Kenyan built with a 4x midget with a Chevy 2 on a line flat on the side. I ran that car quite successfully on pavement and on dirt, and then ended up buying a car again for myself and ran that on some dirt and pavement shows, and I finally just sold that. So I think I'm done this time, but you never know.
You never know, yeah. Oh, well, it's great to have you back here at Ruapuna. The place is looking good, isn't it?
Big difference. I'm trying to think of the last time I saw this place. I don't think I saw it on my last trip, but it's phenomenal what the club members have done. And being a club still, it's something to be proud of, all the people here.
Yeah, proud of, and I think you should be really proud of your racing career too, Howdy. So thanks for joining us.
All right, thank you.